Some of the most beautiful high streets Britain ever built are standing almost completely empty right now. One town on this list has more Grade 1 listed buildings than anywhere in the country, except Trafalgar Square. And right now, about half of its shopfronts are shut. We're going from a market that's traded under the same royal charter since 1247, to a pier that ran its own train half a mile out over the sea and isn't there anymore, to a warehouse district built entirely by German merchants who made Yorkshire rich and then left. Every one of these places emptied out for a real reason: wool, coal, shipbuilding, package holidays abroad, and every one of them still has the architecture standing exactly where the builders left it. Stay for number 1, see, because it has more protected Georgian buildings than anywhere in Britain outside Trafalgar Square. And the quiet high street next to it is hiding one number that's almost impossible to believe. Britain's high streets aren't quietly ticking along the way they used to. Nationally, around 14% of high street shops sit empty right now. In the worst towns on this list, that climbs to nearly 1 in 5. Newport sits at 19%, Bradford at 18%, and Blackpool just under that. None of these are ghost towns in the abandoned sense. People still live in every one of them. They raise kids in them and retire in them. They walk their dogs past the same shuttered units every morning without giving it a second thought. The shops emptied, the town didn't. That distinction matters. An empty high street looks like bad news if you're trying to sell something on one. If you're looking to buy a home near one instead, it's usually good news. It's the reason prices here sit nowhere near the UK's national average of £268,132. Wool money, coal money, seaside money, and shipbuilding money all built these places, and every one of those trades has moved on since. The buildings stayed behind with nobody left to fill them. That's the trade this whole list runs on. Less footfall on the street. In exchange for a lower number on the mortgage. Start at the bottom, with the town that shows the whole pattern in miniature. Number 10 is Hartlepool, on the County Durham coast. A new railway and a coal export dock changed everything. The village of about 1,300 people in 1831 became a town of over 9,000 by 1851. One of the fastest population jumps of any town on this entire list. That boom left behind St Hilda's Church, a Victorian Gothic building near the marina that still anchors the old town today. Its spire is still visible over rooftops that haven't changed shape in well over a century. The coal trade that paid for the stonework dried up long ago. The boom also left behind HMS Trincomalee, docked at the National Museum of the Royal Navy. She happens to be the oldest warship still afloat anywhere in the UK. You can walk right up to her hull on a quiet weekday and have most of the dock to yourself. Hartlepool's high street has struggled along with most of the northeast's. The region already carries some of the highest empty shopfront rates anywhere in the country. The ship and the church never went anywhere. Neither did the people who still call the old headland home, where terraced streets look down over the same dock that put the town on the map. Prices here sit around £162,000 on average. Well under 2/3 of the national figure. That's not a typo. That's a genuine 3-bedroom Victorian terrace for less than a deposit in most of southern England. This is a town that still moors a warship older than almost anything else afloat in Britain, right at the end of its own high street. Hartlepool's whole story runs on coal, leaving Britain by ship. What's next runs on something you'd never guess leaving the exact same way: ice. Number 9 is Grimsby, Lincolnshire. Picture the ice factory at its peak in the 1950s, churning out 1,200 tons of ice a day. Every ton went straight into the holds of trawlers heading back out to sea before the catch had a chance to spoil. That capacity turned Grimsby, for a stretch, into the busiest fishing port anywhere on Earth. It started with the Royal Dock opening in 1852, 4 years after the railway first arrived. The town's population doubled to almost 9,000 within that first decade alone. It was a boom built entirely around getting fish out of the North Sea and onto trains as fast as possible. Grimsby threw up the East Marsh district at speed right alongside the docks. purely to house the dock workers pouring in to work them. That whole operation produced the ice factory. It's still the earliest and largest of its kind left standing anywhere in the world, and the only one that still has its original machinery inside. The fishing fleets thinned out over the following decades. The Casbah district around the ice factory now sits largely derelict. International heritage groups have flagged it as a building worth saving before it's genuinely too late. Grimsby still carries the same street layout the Victorians built around the docks. Far fewer trawlers come in to fill it now, and far fewer people work the sheds that once processed everything those trawlers brought home. A typical house in Grimsby goes for around £136,000, among the cheapest prices on this entire list. Grimsby's port disappeared when the fish did. Up next is a town that didn't grow by accident at all. It got built almost overnight on purpose by two men who arrived with nothing but a plan and a railway line. Number 8 is Barrow-in-Furness, out on the Cumbrian coast. In 1839, an industrialist named Henry Schneider turned up in Furness with money and an idea. Within a few decades, he'd helped build one of the only fully planned towns anywhere in Victorian Britain. Barrow was laid out deliberately, rather than left to grow on its own. Schneider worked alongside railway manager James Ramsden, who later became Barrow's first mayor in 1867. Together they opened the Furness Railway in 1846 to haul iron ore and slate out of the local mines and down to the coast for shipping onward. The pair then built blast furnaces that by 1876 formed the single largest steelworks on the planet. Ramsden founded the Barrow Shipbuilding Company in 1871. The population followed the money in a way almost no other English town has ever matched. It went from a scattering of a few hundred people to over 18,000 by the 1871 census. In barely 40 years, a remote headland turned into a major industrial town, complete with railway, docks, and its own shipyard. A town assembled almost from scratch by two named men rarely survives them cleanly, and Barrow hasn't. Its economy now leans on a single modern shipyard. The broad Victorian economy of iron, steel, and shipbuilding that first raised the town out of the ground is long gone. A house here costs around £188,000 on average. That's still a fraction of what the same square footage costs down south. Two men built Barrow in a few decades flat. The next marketplace on this list has been trading since a King's Charter in 1247, long before either of them was born. Number 7 is Wigan, in Greater Manchester. Its market rights go back to a royal charter granted in 1247. For nearly 6 centuries after that, trading happened out in the open street. The town finally built a proper, covered market hall. Standing from 1877 through to 1978. To bring the whole thing under one roof, the gentler side of Wigan's Victorian wealth is Mesners Park. 30 acres opened on the 6th of August, 1878. Local mill owner Nathaniel Eckersley paid for it with a £12,000 bequest. Landscape gardener John Maclean designed it after winning a national competition for the job in 1877. It still holds a bronze statue of local benefactor and MP Sir Francis Sharp Powell. Coal and cotton did the heavy lifting underneath all of it. Trencherfield Mill's giant steam engine still stands as the clearest physical reminder of that industry left in the town. None of that history stopped the town centre's own gallery shopping centre from losing at least 35% of its retail floor space to vacancy. Council reports expect more units to empty out as time goes on, rather than fewer. The steam engine and the park survive because nobody had a reason to tear them down. The shops around them simply lost their reason to stay open. A typical home here runs about £184,000. a genuine bargain next to almost anywhere within commuting distance of Manchester. Wigan's High Street took 700 years to hollow out. The next one on this list took about 15. Number 6 is Rhyl on the North Wales coast. Picture August of 1867, the opening of Victoria Pier, designed by engineer James Brunlees. It stretched 2,355 feet out over the water, with its own miniature train running the full length of it. This was the first pier ever built in North Wales. Rhyl only existed as a proper town because sea bathing became fashionable in the 1830s and 1840s. It only boomed because the Chester to Holyhead Railway reached it in 1848. That dropped Liverpool and Manchester day trippers straight onto its promenade. In numbers the town had never handled before. The five-domed Rhyl Pavilion carried decades of theatre, dancing, and winter garden entertainment on the back of that traffic. For a long stretch of the Victorian and Edwardian era, Rhyl ranked among the biggest holiday names in North Wales. Then storms and passing ships battered the pier so badly, year after year, that the town finally demolished it in 1973. That happened right as cheap package holidays to Spain started pulling Rhyl's own visitors away for good. One recent report found the town centre almost silent at 1:30 on a Wednesday afternoon in July, right in peak season. A local resident described recent Saturdays as having barely any customers at all. That resident admitted there was simply no reason left to come to Rhyl. Takeaways, barbers and tattoo parlours have filled in where department stores and tea rooms used to be. Independent shops that do survive tend to sit tucked away off the main high street, without much signage to point visitors toward them. Prices here average around £190,000. Rhyl lost its pier to the sea. The next town on this list lost nothing to weather or water at all. It just ran out of demand. If you're still with me, drop a thumbs up right now. Men who crossed a continent to make Britain's wool money built the next one, and their warehouses are still standing exactly as they left them. Number 5 is Bradford, West Yorkshire, and specifically its Little Germany district. In 1836, a merchant named Leo Schuster built the very first German warehouse in the city. A wave of German and German Jewish merchants followed him in over the following decades, chasing a wool trade that Germany already wanted badly. Jacob Behrens led that wave of migration and eventually rose all the way to Lord Mayor of Bradford in 1910. A Yorkshire wool city had elected a German-born merchant to its single highest civic post. Between 1855 and 1890, those merchants built some of the finest textile warehouses ever put up in Britain. Italianate palazzo fronts in honey-coloured sandstone, with rusticated ground floors and ironwork balconies, crammed onto streets like Curragh Street and Vicar Lane. Leopold Rice built his warehouse at number 6 Curragh Street in 1857. Nathan Reichenheim of Berlin built his at number 4 in 1859. And Frankfurt merchant J.P. Kessler finished Albion House on Vicar Lane in 1875. Every one of those buildings is still standing, and every one of them still carries the name of the man who paid for it. Bradford's wool trade eventually left the way it arrived, gradually, and then all at once, and it took the shoppers with it. The city now carries an 18% shop vacancy rate, one of the worst of any town centre in Britain. The warehouses those merchants built still stand almost entirely intact around it. Empty of tenants, but structurally untouched, some of the finest Victorian commercial architecture in the north of England is sitting in Bradford right now with nobody renting the ground floor. Average house prices sit at roughly £189,000, a genuine fraction of what similar Victorian stock costs anywhere near London. Bradford's wool merchants got rich and built to prove it. The next entry on this list exists because of one bridge nobody else in the world has ever been able to copy. Number 4 is Newport, South Wales, built almost entirely on the back of coal exports and iron and steel production through the Victorian era. 2 Grade 2 listed shopping arcades still run off the city's high street today. Market Arcade opened in 1869 as Fennell's Arcade, and it remains one of the oldest working Victorian arcades in the entire UK. Newport Arcade followed in 1893. And both still carry the same delicate iron and glass roofs that Victorian shoppers walked under a century and a half ago. John Frost Square sits at the centre of the city, named after the Chartist leader who led the Newport Rising in 1839. That ties the modern city centre directly to that rebellion, rather than to anything decorative. The real engineering statement, though, is the Newport Transporter Bridge, opened in 1906 and designed by French engineer Ferdinand Arnaudin. The River Usk has the highest tidal range of any river running through a city anywhere on Earth. That ruled out a normal low bridge entirely. So Arnaudin built a suspended gondola that ferries cars and passengers across on cables slung high above the shipping lanes instead. Only 7 working transporter bridges like it survive anywhere on the planet, and Newport still has its own. The heavy industry that built all of it is largely gone now. Newport's shop vacancy rate has climbed to 19%. The single worst figure of any town centre in this whole countdown. A city built to move coal, iron, and steel out of South Wales as fast as possible has ended up with the emptiest high street in Britain. That high street sits right next to a bridge engineers still study today. The average home here runs around £211,000. That's the highest figure on this list so far, and still well under the national average. That 19% number sounds like it should be the most dramatic figure in this entire video. It isn't. Newport's bridge is one of 7 left standing on Earth. Up next is a tower nobody in Britain has ever needed a second name for. Number 3 is Blackpool, Lancashire. Picture the 11th of July 1878, opening day for the Winter Gardens, designed by architect Thomas Mitchell at a cost of £100,000. It rose around an iron and glass dome, 36.5 metres over the vestibule. A glazed floral hall ran alongside it for promenading between shows. The expansion never really stopped after that. Celebrated theatre architect Frank Matcham added the Opera House in 1889. Mangnall and Littlewood added the Empress Ballroom in 1896. At 12,500 square feet, it briefly ranked among the biggest ballrooms anywhere in the world. Blackpool Tower rose alongside all of it. It became the single image most of Britain still pictures when someone says the word Seaside, decades before package holidays abroad existed at all. Behind that image, the town centre now carries a 17.6% shop vacancy rate. One retail study found the town's share of comparison goods shopping dropped by 8.8 percentage points between 2010 and the late 2010s. Units on Bank Hay Street and Talbot Road have sat empty for over a decade at a stretch. Both streets sit tucked away from the main seafront most visitors still see. The name still pulls people to the coast every single summer. It's the streets behind the tower that most of them never walk down. Both the Winter Gardens and the tower are now owned by the council, the first time in either building's history that's ever been true. Public ownership arrived only after private money had already moved on. Average house prices sit somewhere between £135,000 and £186,000, depending on which index you check. That's still remarkably low for a name this famous. Blackpool built its name on shows people paid to see. The next one built its name on something people ate off every day, without anyone thinking twice about where it came from. Number 2 is Burslem, the oldest of the 6 towns that make up Stoke-on-Trent. It's still known as the mother town of the entire pottery industry. It's a strange start for a town that shows up in the Domesday Survey as simple wasteland. with nothing to suggest what it would eventually become. In 1751, brothers Thomas and John Wedgwood built the big house on the corner of Wedgwood Street and Chapel Bank. That was decades before the family name became one of the most recognized ceramics brands on the entire planet. Burslem sat on natural deposits of ironstone, clay, and coal exactly where it needed them. It turned that accident of geography into the country's leading pottery supply by the end of the 17th century. By 1710, the town already ran 35 separate pot banks at once. Those kilns fired plates and cups that would eventually reach houses across the world. Royal Doulton and Spode both trace their roots back to the same cluster of towns. Between them, the 6 towns effectively built Britain's entire ceramics industry from this one patch of Staffordshire clay. Wedgwood, Doulton, and Spode are 3 of the most recognised names in British tableware. All 3 trace back to pot banks within a short walk of each other. In this one corner of Staffordshire. The Wedgwood name went on to conquer the world. Burslem itself did not go with it. Heavy industrial decline set in hard after 1945. Most of what remains of that pottery boom now survives as museum pieces. Places like the Gladstone Pottery Museum preserve it, rather than working buildings still firing kilns for a living. Bottle ovens and old pot bank facades still line streets that once employed thousands. A fraction of the working potteries remain. Brick chimneys with nothing left underneath them to smoke. Burslem gave the world a name everyone still recognises on a dinner plate. What's coming up gave the world more listed Georgian buildings in a single square than anywhere in the country except Trafalgar Square. And it isn't finished revealing what it's got. Number 1 is Birkenhead, sitting on the Rhyl Peninsula directly across the Mersey from Liverpool, and specifically its Hamilton Square. Edinburgh architect James Gillespie Graham designed the square between 1825 and 1847. In a Georgian classical style with sandstone facades and symmetrical terraces. It has the kind of quiet, disciplined proportions you'd expect from an Edinburgh Newtown street. Transplanted whole onto the Mersey, developer William Laird named it after his own business partner and brother-in-law, William Hamilton. Hamilton Square was only ever meant to be the opening phase of a much bigger civic plan for the entire town. A whole new Birkenhead was meant to be built around this one square as its centrepiece. A depressed local economy combined with a flood of working-class dock labourers who needed somewhere to live. The rest of Laird's grand design never got built at all. Builders finished only the square itself. It survives today holding 61 Grade 1 listed properties. More Grade 1 listed buildings than any square in the entire country outside Trafalgar Square. Stand in the middle of it on a quiet morning, and the symmetry still does exactly what Gillespie Graham intended. Almost nothing he planned around it ever arrived. That survival is really the same story told from 2 directions at once. The square never got demolished or redeveloped, largely because the ambitious plan around it collapsed before it could ever swallow the square whole. Shop vacancy in Birkenhead's town centre sits at 16.3%. Average house prices come in around £200,000. Close to the middle of this whole list, that's still nowhere near what a Georgian terrace this significant would cost anywhere in London or Edinburgh. This is the number the whole video has been building toward. Footfall through the shopping centre at the heart of Birkenhead's town centre fell from 17.9 million visits in 2008 to 10.3 million in 2019. One winter count taken in January of 2020 suggested the true annual figure had already dropped below 4 million. Read that again. A town centre that once pulled in almost 18 million visits a year now struggles to clear 4. One street away, 61 Georgian terraces sit exactly as finished in 1847, protected, untouched, and almost entirely alone. That's the real pattern behind every town on this list. The same neglect that emptied these high streets is the reason nobody ever got round to knocking their best buildings down. That's true from Bradford's warehouses, Puma, to Wigan's steam engine, to this square. 61 Grade 1 listed houses are still standing in Birkenhead tonight, in a square built for a city that stopped growing around it. It's waiting for the rest of Britain to notice what's still there.